Focus is all clean. Enzo. And good morning, YouTube. My name is Will. This here is Enzo. Today we got to get a haircut. So as I often do in life, brought Enzo with me. Heel. People are gonna be upset they didn't get to see you.
Oh, you videoing him?
Yeah. You're getting awfully vocal. And we're back at the house. So, having a puppy does have its benefits. I asked if I could squeeze in a last minute haircut if I brought Enzo along with me, and she was more than happy to comply with that. So, he may not be earning an income to pull his own weight, but he does do pretty well. He did give me free lunch one time. So yeah, I pull my own weight sometimes. All right, some quick housekeeping before we get into today's video. Seriously, it's always something. Of contact links below: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you want to use those versus just leaving comments if it's a little more personal. Otherwise, stick with comments. They're easy to keep track of, kinda. I do plan to be at the Busher Shootout this year. While I have gone for like all 3 days, I think it might even be 4 days now. And the last couple times I've just gone up for like the actual shootout itself on that Sunday. This year, however, I plan to take Enzo, so I'm thinking we might actually do the Friday evening one, or the Friday day and evening one, which is, it's at the shop. It's more of like an open house. They have the dyno. They have like an impromptu car show. There's a lot of grass. There's food being, they pretty much shut down the whole town. Having Enzo, I think that'll be a little bit better. I can be optimistic, but I'm also realistic in that I'm not going to be driving the Evo. Even if I got the Evo running by then, there's still some other small things I want to fix before I'd really feel safe driving it that far. And throw in the fact that I have him with me. I think the wife's gonna go. I might have a friend or two go. The FJ just makes more sense at this point. All right, all that said, if you haven't subscribed and you like Evo content and you're liking the videos, please do so. Like if that's your thing. Otherwise, we're gonna get into today's topic, which is 10 things you should be looking out for if you go to buy an Evo, especially if you've never owned an Evo. This is really geared towards the person who knows nothing about Evos, or maybe you do know a lot about Evos, but you've known it for a long time and possibly forgotten some of the basics. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. You all right there? You all right? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. All right, so you're going to buy an Evo. Whether it's your first Evo or not, it's a good reminder of some things you should be looking out for. Let's start with the drivetrain. Now, obviously, you're going to want to drive the car and make sure that, nothing's making any super weird noises or anything like that. Basic, just buying a used car mentality. You always want to have that sort of stuff on your radar. What this is going to focus on, though, is Evo-specific items. So, let's start with the drivetrain. There's not a whole lot of major issues you really got to watch out for, but there are a few. There's 3 main issues with the Evo drivetrain, and that is the 5-speed has an issue, the 6-speed has an issue, or multiple issues, and the ACD. With the 5-speed, you're almost guaranteed to have the 5th gear synchro be kind of notchy, grind a little. I'm sure it's out there, but I have yet to find a stock Evo with any amount of miles on it that doesn't have this issue, whether it's an Evo 8 or 9. Back when these cars were a lot more common, everybody I talked to had this issue. My brand new Evo 9 developed this issue within less than 30,000 miles. This car has that issue. It's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. It doesn't tend to get any worse. Basically, the 5th gear synchro, I don't know if it goes out or what, but essentially if you are driving the car and you shift under higher loads, you're going to hear a grind. You're going to hear it grind when it goes in. Now, if you're driving it slower, or if you shift slower in the fifth, you're not going to notice it. If you have ever ridden in an Evo and didn't pay attention, and didn't know what you were looking at, you may have noticed the driver, shift first through fourth one way, and then when they went in the fifth, they just kind of hesitated just a little bit, because that's really all it takes, and then fifth gear goes in smooth. Like I said, it's not a major issue. You can have the transmission completely rebuilt with new synchros and everything for less than $1,000, but it's not going to get any worse in my experience. So definitely don't let it be a deal breaker, but I would factor it maybe into the cost. When I bought mine, without even seeing the car or anything, one of the first questions I had was, does it have the fifth gear synchro issue? Does it grind going in the fifth gear? They said yes. I told them, I knew what that would cost to fix. They were more than happy to just take that off the price, and we moved on. It's something that a lot of even dealers won't even pay attention that it has, because even if they drive the car, they typically won't go all the way up to fifth gear, or they may not be driving it hard enough. But any type of decent load under boost in the fifth gear, you're probably going to notice that. So, issue number 2, that's going to be the 6-speed transmission. That's going to be found in the 05 and 06 Evo 8 and 9 MRs. This transmission also has synchro issues, but they're a little bit different. So what Mitsubishi did was, hi buddy. Hi. Yeah. What do you got to say? Anything? Is this really where we're going to sit or stand? And so, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It is warm out. I did need, a little cool off there. Sometimes you just get those moments where he's got to be in your bubble. And then sometimes he doesn't. I think he's trying to find his ball now. So, back to what I was saying. Mitsubishi decided to make the 6-speed, and essentially what they did was they took the 5-speed transmission and they crammed a 6th gear into it. So you have a transmission case that was meant to hold 5 gears that is now holding 6. So everything's really tightly spaced, and you end up with the synchros going out. Similar in fashion to how they do in 5th gear in the 5 speeds, the difference being that this tends to happen it can happen in any gear really. I think the gears you use the most common, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, are going to be the first ones to go. And this can be, one, it's much more of a nuisance, because if you think about it, a lot of times you're going somewhere, you get on the highway, you shift in the 5th, that's the last time you do it. When you're driving around otherwise than cruising on the highway, you're going to be in those other gears. And the MR, you're in those other gears all the time, so that's a huge issue. Plus, with the MRs, from my understanding, I think it actually will get worse to a point to where you really can't drive the car. If you test drive a 6-speed Evo and it's having synchro issues, then that's a red flag right away. You can definitely get it rebuilt. I don't know what the costs are. They're probably similar to a 5-speed rebuild, but you're going to want to definitely work that into the price of the car. Otherwise, you're going to have to replace those. That's just, there's no way around that. As a side note, if you drive the car, if you just use it as a daily and you drive it normally and you don't do any type of crazy high horsepower numbers, you'll be fine with the 6-speed. Buddy, you're kind of blocking the shot here. All right, I'll get it for you. Yep, I'll stop what I'm doing. Get your ball, no problem. Where's it at? I don't even see it, buddy. Oh, there it is. Oh, I can't quite reach that. Happy now? Got your ball? Back to the shade. So that's really all you wanted this whole time. Okay, and the third issue with the drivetrain is going to be the ACD. Now, you're not going to have this issue in the 03 and 04s, but in the 05 and 06s, and I guess technically you might have this in the 10s, but we're not talking about the 10s in this video. You can have some ACD issues, and it's hard to really tell any of these issues by driving, but one of the things you might see is if you drive it and all three lights are lit up. So tarmac, gravel, and snow are all lit up. Now, if you get in a car and they all light up, and you turn the car off and turn it back on and they don't come back on, you drive it around a bunch, it could just be a fluke thing. That happened in my Evo 9 a couple times where, you know, I was the only owner, I bought it new, and I had a couple times where it lit up like a Christmas tree, and I took it into the dealer and everything was fine. I even had some other shops look at it. Everything was fine. So it was just kind of one of those fluke things. So don't let it be a deal breaker. Be mindful of it. Now, if you drive it and they stay on and you turn off the car, turn it back on, disconnect the battery, and they stay on, then you have much more reason to be concerned. I'm pretty sure it even happened on this car one time where they all came on for like a drive, and then I turned it off, turned it back on, never saw them again. So it does happen. Don't panic if it happens. Just know what to do. See if it keeps coming back. If it comes back, then you definitely have an issue. All right, let's talk about the brakes now. There's also three main issues with the brakes. One is the stock brake pads are crap and they will fade just from street driving. If you're being aggressive on some backcountry roads, they will fade. When it happens, it is scary. Don't let that happen. Swap those out. Now, one of the things you have to be careful of is most cars that you're going to find nowadays, they're not going to be running stock pads. But what people do is they put a pad that's too aggressive for the rotors. So then you end up with warped rotors. It's real easy to tell if the rotors are warped when you drive it. You know, get up to speed, highway speeds, come off an off-ramp, come down on the brakes. Not super hard, but decent and light to medium pressure, and see if the steering wheel shakes at all. The problem is, if a seller's trying to be shady, all they really have to do is go get the rotors turned, and it won't do that for a while. I don't know that necessarily the person I bought this from knew that. It does kind of make me wonder, because shortly after I bought the car, my rotor started to do that. It could just be a coincidence. They could have had them turned before I bought it. Bless you. I'm not sure. It's annoying. Like I said, I mean, you can turn the rotors and that'll buy you some time before it does it again. It's not really affecting too much. It feels scary if you've never felt it. I definitely wouldn't recommend driving with that. If you drive one and it does that, know that you're going to need to buy new brake rotors and probably new pads. Also be mindful if they tell you the brakes have just been turned, because there's very few reasons to turn brakes, especially if they're slotted or cross-drilled or anything. So keep that in mind as well. And the third issue is what is known as brown bows, and that is when the red Brembos look more like a dark brown or burgundy. This comes from extreme high heat. It's pretty much a guarantee that the car's been tracked. Now, if they tell you the car's been tracked, then that's fine. You know, you're getting what you know is you know what you're getting at that point. Doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with them, but the high heat from that, it tends to fade the paint and the clear coat, and they'll just turn brown. It looks terrible. I do know for a fact the 10s do this as well. The 8s and 9s definitely do it. All right, speaking of cosmetics, let's talk more about the paint clear coat as a whole. First and foremost, the wings. Specifically, the Evo 8 wings that are all carbon down the sides and the top. Those are pretty much guaranteed to peel clear coat unless the owner is just insane about putting like sealant and protected on it. It's probably still going to peel. Know that it doesn't necessarily mean they were neglectful. It's just really crappy quality control on Mitsubishi's part. Obviously, you'd want to get it fixed. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, so know that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the car wasn't cared for. The clear coat will also peel on the Brembos. Even if they're not being tracked, it tends to peel. My car has that issue where the clear coat is faded, so the brakes, they still look red, but they're not as red as they once were. That's just kind of part of it. You're going to see that even more so because even people who tend to take good care of their cars, they're usually not so OCD about it, like myself, that when I rotate my wheels and tires, I use that opportunity to put fresh sealant on the brake calipers. Really the only way you're not going to see that, and It's not a huge deal. It's more of an annoyance. It's one of the reasons I'm going to get mine refinished. It's not affecting performance or anything. It's just kind of annoying. Leads me to the last part of the quality control when it comes to paint with Mitsubishi. This issue I realized back when I had my Evo 9 and I had a GSR, and then a buddy bought an Evo 9, happened to be an RS, but it was still the same color, still wicked white. And when you looked at the cars, they looked the same. Until you sat them next to each other, then there was a clear difference in the colors of white. So I started paying attention to this after that point, and especially like at the shootouts and at different car events where there's multiple Evos, I've started to pay attention to this, and you will actually see different shades of white. Now, I take care of my cars, so I know that wasn't the issue. I don't really know. The only thing I can really chalk it up to is a quality control issue. So if you're familiar with, especially with the white, what it's supposed to look like, and you go look at one and it doesn't look quite the same, doesn't mean it was repainted. I mean, it could have been. It could just be typical Mitsubishi quality control. So just keep that in mind. It's nothing to be alarmed for. It's just kind of one of those things. It is what it is. All right, and for the final 10th issue, we're going to talk about the interior. Now, there's a couple small nuisance in the interior. I don't really consider those issues that you need to watch out for. I am going to talk about them, but I don't consider them separate issues because mostly they're just wear items that you could see on any car. I'm also not going to list them because then I wouldn't have 10. I'd have like 12 or 13, and that's just weird. The main issue that you're going to see is the heater control knob. It gets stuck, and I've watched like videos and write-ups on how to fix this, and it's super obnoxious how you have to fix this, to the point that I'm just not going to worry about mine. Mine does it a little bit. It sticks a little bit. It doesn't stop it from working. But there are those times where like you go to turn it and you almost feel like you're going to break it off before it turns. So know that, depending on, I would definitely use it as a negotiating tool. If you go to drive one and it's stuck like that, especially if it's a dealership, I would totally say they need to get that fixed because it's pain. If it's a private seller or anything, I would still use it. It's one of those things that I'm not going to worry about it right now, but if it gets any worse, or obviously if it does completely stop working, then I am going to have to fix it, and that's going to cost me some time and money. So be mindful of that. Small interior things really just come down to the center console on the GSRs and the MRs. It's cheap, so like on my 9, even though I wasn't rough on it, it's still, the little lock thing broke. It's not really a lock, it's just like snaps it in so it doesn't move, so it jiggled a little. It's kind of annoying. I don't have that problem anymore with the RS. And then the Alcantara, if they don't clean it properly, you have to clean Alcantara really specific ways, and nobody does it. So you can get some of those like fuzzies, and then obviously the steering wheel's leather, and it'll wear down from all the heavy street racing that people do with these. Other than that, that's really the 10 top things that I would look for. So I mean, you've got the ACD lights, you've got the 5-speed and 6-speed synchro issues, the stock brake pad issues that'll fade, brakes that, rotors that will warp, and you've got the brown bows if they've tracked it. You've got clear coat issues on the wing, clear coat issues on the brakes, and just general paint quality control issues. And then you have the heater knob. So those are the things that I would always check right away when looking at an Evo, or ask those questions if you're going to go look at one, so at least you know what you're getting into ahead of time. Obviously, there could be other issues, but just like any used car, there could be issues. So these are really focusing on Evo specific. If you guys are in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, let me know. I'm always looking to meet up with other car people. We go to a lot of Cars and Coffee, Enzo and I. We won't be at any this weekend. We are going to Nashville to hang out with some friends. The following weekend we'll probably be back at it. Like the videos if that's your thing. Subscribe if you haven't. Ask any questions or anything you have about myself, about the Evos, about Enzo. Other than that, I think we're gonna call it today. Right, buddy? You guys have a good weekend, and we will see you later. Enzo, say bye-bye.